Hi, welcome back to the EventHouse channel, your home for all things hospitality. I'm your host, Jill Goldfine. We are doing a three-part series about our hospitality industry returning to the workforce. You don't want to miss this series, so be sure to subscribe, like, and share our channel. It's great to see our industry bouncing back from such a difficult year. Jobs are becoming available and people want to work. So, how do we match you up? We're going to give you some tools to do just that. Today is the first in our employment series. You'll see my interview with Kathy Hubler, who comes from a hospitality background and now has created a great career coaching business, mostly tailored to our industry. I hope you'll find her story inspiring and her tips really helpful. So, let's get started. I'm so glad that Kathy Hubler could join me online today. She has her own story of inspiration throughout the pandemic, and our conversation will give you some great insight about career counseling and how you can move forward. Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Jill.
So I would like for our audience to get to know you a little bit first. If you could share, you do have a hospitality background. If you could tell us a little bit about that, and then also, I guess, leading up to the pandemic.
I have 20 years plus of experience in restaurants. Up till the pandemic, I had moved from New York City to the West Coast back in 2015. Started in Seattle, made my way down to Olympia, helped open a restaurant here in Olympia at this oyster bar. Sweet little restaurant for first time restaurant owners, a lot of fun. And then the pandemic hit. And prior to all of that, I had been working on my coaching business. So I'm a career coach for women in the food service and hospitality industry. And when COVID hit, I too lost my full time job and income. And I
Yes.
think what was really striking to me at that time was the impact that shutting down the restaurants was going to make on people emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
And right away, I saw a need to just support people. I had been through losing jobs, and I quickly formed together a support group, which I ran for about 6 months called Resilient Together. We're on a weekly basis. I just invited people in and I said, come as you are. Not everyone was in a good place. Sometimes people didn't even want to talk. They just wanted to be in a room with someone and listen and feel like they belonged and like they wanted to feel like things were normal for them.
And it also sounds like your coaching skills came to good use to moderate a group like that. Can you tell me about how you got certified and, in general, how the coaching business came to be?
I found coaching when I quit my job in New York City. Um, Again, I was in a toxic work environment that just kind of turned overnight, and an incident had happened within an open kitchen. And it was kind of my tipping point where I was like, I can't do it anymore. And it was a very hard decision for me to make because I really loved the establishment that I was working in. It was a very small place in the West Village, amazing food, but the environment was not healthy for me. I quit my job and didn't know what to do. So what do? You turn to Google and you start asking Google questions. And somewhere along the way, I found life coaching. And I was like, well, this is kind of interesting. I kind of want to know more. And I looked into it and I thought, well, sounds like a good time for me to maybe invest in some coaching and figure out what's next for me. And I found a coach that I wanted to work with. I reached out to them and I never heard back. And I was a little bummed about it, to say the least.
That's
But
discouraging.
it was a little discouraging, but at the time, I kept moving forward, making progress, doing what I needed to do, and I ended up going back to work with people that I had worked with in the past, but at a different location. So I was with family and I was in a good environment. And every once in a while, coaching would keep popping up in my life. And I was working at Casalula, which is a cheese and wine bar on 52nd and Ninth in New York City. And if anyone has ever been there, it's this tiny restaurant where the kitchen is in the bar. So I'm back to back as the bartender with the cook. And one night I hit it off with this woman. It was a very busy night. I remember just like going back and forth in this 12-seat bar, trying to get to everyone, do my thing. And eventually I got to a point where I could ask, so what do you do? And she said, I'm a coach. And I was like, tell me more, because coaching had popped up so many times and I'd research it. I'd go back, do nothing with it. I wasn't sure why life was doing this. And she told me about her coaching experience. And then I said, well, I've thought about becoming a coach. And it was something about the way she looked at me and said, you should do it, that I was like, okay, yeah, I am. I'm going to do it. And I went home and I found the school I wanted to apply for and signed up within the week and had a life-changing experience in my foundations coaching class, which is the first class you take as you get into coaching and you're starting to learn about coaching and what it means. And I even remember at the time asking my instructor, are all classes like this? And she said, no, this one's very special. And I was like, it's changing my life. Because that's also when I realized I was ready to leave New York City. And I hadn't been making the steps to do that. And I knew that happiness, or more happiness, was on the other side of that. Once I started kind of figuring things out, I coach a little bit here and there, but it wasn't as steady as what I liked. And then Seattle didn't feel like it was working out for me. So I ended up moving to Olympia, Washington, about a year and a half into my move, and settling up here. And a few years later, when I finally felt settled, I felt good about where my life was. I was like, I'm ready to really start putting my time and energy into my coaching business. It's a skill that I use on a daily basis, whether I get to coach a full-time client or not. You use the communication skills and the probing to get people to places without telling them what to do all the time. And in life, it's communicating. And so in 2019, I relaunched my coaching business as Ladies Against the Grain, which to me meant I'm coaching women in the food service and hospitality industry, which was always the clientele that I was catering to.
Yes.
So I just niched it
Pun
down.
intended.
Pun intended. I didn't know it, but I love a good food pun. And I wanted to create something where people knew when they were coming into the coaching, it was about finding ways to make their life, I say more palatable, because when I think of against the grain, I think of why you cut a steak against the grain, right? When you cut it against the grain and then you go in to take that bite, it's juicy, it's flavorful, it's good. You want more. And that's how life should be. But when you get to the point where I see my clients when they first come to me, it doesn't feel like that. And I always want to let people know there is a way and you don't have to do it by yourself. And so that's how we got to Ladies Against the Grain.
Oh, I love it. Wow, what a great story. Is that more of your full-time focus now? Has the restaurant reopened, your oyster bar? Are you there at all now? And tell me how you're helping people in this capacity.
Yeah, great question. So when about 6 months into the layoffs, I was unemployed for 2 months. I went back. They were a little ambitious and had to cut back, so I was laid off again. And at that point, I knew I kind of needed to take a dose of my own medicine. And what I mean by that is within Resilient Together, when we were talking, one of the things I encouraged the participants was, if you got to find a job outside of the restaurant industry, then take something to gain another skill that you can take with you, whether that's going back into the restaurant business and utilizing management skills, leadership skills, whatever that is, or whether you end up taking that into a new career. I knew it was really important because I didn't see the industry coming back anytime soon. And so I was able to leverage my coaching, my career coaching, and get a full-time career consultant job with a company called Resume Spice, which specializes in writing resumes across all industries. So what I love about what I get to do with Resume Spice is I get to utilize my coaching skills, but I also get to take a lot out of that and apply it to Ladies Against the Grain. It's given me this huge knowledge of industries that I had no idea of what people do, what skills they need. And I really, I thought I did well at reviewing resumes before, but I'm really an exceptional resume reviewer now, which I do in Ladies and Against the Grain. I don't write resumes, but we review your resume to make sure that it's ready to go and you're applying for them. So I work for Resume Spice full time. And then in my free time, I work with Ladies Against the Grain, working with a handful of clients at a time.
Another thing, I guess this jumps ahead to interviews, but one thing I wanted to make sure that we touch on is the follow up, follow through, and thank yous. How important that is. Again, I guess old school, traditional, but it's, I think, important.
Yeah, great point. And I always recommend sending one. And sometimes I get on the phone and a client is, well, I had an interview and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, did you send your thank you letter yet? No. I'm like, this is what you need to do. And so a thank you letter does a few things. It shows your professionalism. That's hugely important, right? That you know what it means to be a professional, to go through the motions, and that you're at that level. It gives you an opportunity, if there was something lagging in the interview that you weren't quite sure on, you can circle back around to it. So if there was a question where you got out and you're like processing the interview and you're like, oh, this was the answer I should have gone with, you put that in your thank you letter.
To give the answer. Yep.
Yeah. When you mentioned this, I was unclear, but thinking about it, I remember this one time, whether you tell them a story where you fix the situation or you tell them how you would approach the situation, it's your opportunity to circle back around. You're getting on their radar. You're showing them you understand what it takes to be a professional, to take the steps and go the extra mile. And it's so important to do, regardless of if you want the job or not. I will also say that, because even if it's not the right fit for you, they might know someone who you are the right fit for. So you always have to have that professionalism cap on.
You are in Washington State, but with technology, I guess you can see clients anywhere. Do you meet via Zoom or FaceTime and telephone?
Yeah, I try to meet via Zoom. I love to see people. There are a lot of cues in your facial expressions and your body language that I can pick up on, but I'm happy to do it by phone. I've always done it that way. Coaching has been big at doing that. I think that the last year just solidifies that that's a good way to work with people, and that's only going to make it easier for me to be able to reach people. Most of my clients come from either former New Yorkers or New Yorkers, and then I have some people scattered across the US, but I'm open and available to meet with people wherever they are. And I do my best to schedule people in and make it work for them as well as me, so that we're getting them to a good place.
Yes. Oh, well, that's terrific. It sounds like you have quite a foundation and a skill set to help, and that sixth sense to pick up on people and serve people and help and reach out. So I think that's amazing. I am so glad that I found you and that we met. And I really appreciate your taking the time to talk with me today. And I hope that our audience has gleaned some great tips. And we have your website listed across the bottom of the screen. And I'm so thankful. Thank you so much. Thank you to Kathy for sharing her story and so many helpful tips. Next week, we'll have a video with Carissa Henry on crafting your resume. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on that release. We'd love to hear your story about returning to work. Let us know in the comments below.